Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel for my final thoughts, for the moment maybe, on the modern naval battle system and the at least one expansion which I do own. Um, to be honest, there isn't too much to say about this game, and I don't mean that in a negative sense. It is hugely entertaining. It's incredibly simple to learn. You can be up and playing this within minutes. And I don't know whether this was intentional in the original design, but the way that the various expansions are structured, and if you look at the link to modern naval battles, or Cold War naval battles as it is now on the Relative Range website. I'll include the link at in the introduction to this video as well. Um, it seems almost programmed in a way that when you add an expansion, you are introduced to the mechanics of that expansion in an incredibly simple way. So despite the fact that the game grows in complexity the more expansions you add, you hardly notice. And to me, that's a real winner. And I think the secret is that at its core, the game stays true to itself. It's essentially a game about fleets at war presented in a really simplistic way through the medium of cards, both ship cards and action cards. But it lends itself so well to being modified, adjusted. There's a ton of fan-generated optional rules which you can find on Board Game Geek, among other places. And it's really clever wrinkles like ships with C-rated missiles, cruise missiles. There are special rules governing the fact that these now can be fired from the rear line on account of their size and range. And that makes sense. There's optional rules that modify the use of airstrike and combat air patrol cards, or fighter escort cards. Um, the aforementioned cruise missiles, if they're fired from very long range, they can now be targeted as if they're incoming airstrikes. Now, these are all very much take it or leave it, and you can select which ones you want to use based on how detailed a game you want. So you could just have a really simplistic, basic rules only, random punch up with randomized warships, or you could play one of the long campaigns, of which, as you would have picked up from my last video, there are several. You could fight your way through one of these campaigns, or you could simply craft a number of missions with a set force, with a distinctively Cold War flavour. So you could split up the Soviet come Warsaw Pact deck and the US Navy come NATO deck of ships. Just assemble a credible force based on the points if you want to, and just take it from there. This game has lots of room for adaptability, and it's so small. If you don't carry these boxes around with you, and to be honest, there's very little reason to, I find the various rules and their expansions can fit into a decently sized plastic wallet. And as for the many ship cards and all the counters, they pack quite tightly together. My preferred mode of transport is an old mobile phone box. So this game is wonderfully transportable. You can take it anywhere with you on holiday. If you want to meet up with your mates somewhere else to give it a few runs through, it's fantastic. It's the kind of game that I think you want to play after watching a great film like The Sum of All Fears or Hunt for Red October, or the great Cold War classics would really put you in the mood for something like this. I've been warned off watching the more recent Hunter Killer. I'm told that's really best left alone. But anyway, I'm not here to review films. I'm here to talk about the game. So I think there is a lot to like about this game and hardly anything to dislike. The simplicity, which you've already seen in the layout of the cards, the clarity of the rules, It's so obvious on every single card what you can and you cannot do with it. There's no heavy text, or at least nothing important. You don't have to have an order of play in front of you with endless paragraphs telling you what's going on. The small text is left for the 4-page rule book and the somewhat very slightly denser campaign books if you want to use them. And the beauty of it is, while the campaign and other expansions introduce these information counters, which are really quite useful, you don't have to use them. At its most basic, you could play this game with the cards only, using the attack cards as a means of recording damage. And all you need to bring along other than that are the dice. So that's all the good stuff. I mean, Dan Verson's really to be congratulated on this, one of his earlier designs, because it's a work of genius, I think. It won't satisfy the ultra purist naval wargamer. As ever, someone playing at a very high level will probably want to go off and play something like Harpoon. But for those of you who like very broad strategic control, say a fleet commander, or possibly even a national leader if you're playing several linked campaigns, or you're just simply someone who's pressed for time and doesn't want a huge amount of rules, but you've got at least 4 or 5 friends with you, this game is perfect. Really, really perfect. You don't even particularly have to find the Cold War interesting. It's a fast-paced game that requires very little input in terms of, you know, you don't, it's not like chess. You don't have to overanalyze and overplan it. I mean, by all means think, because, you know, a certain amount of analysis is required to look at the options you have in hand, weigh them up against what your fog of war, or call it your command and control was, a role was for that turn, and judge it against the capabilities of the ships in your formation. But you can pretty much do that on the fly and have loads of fun. I would call this perhaps a deeper beer and pretzels game, depending on what level you're playing. And again, there's that wonderful adaptability within the limits of what is available and what expansions you have access to. This game can be as simple or as complicated as you like. And to me, that's what makes it such a winner. If I had to dwell on a couple of the very, very minor issues with this game, and this is specific to modern naval battles as was, or Cold War naval battles, some people may be put off by the rather dated card art, you know, if they like a lot of colour. But to be perfectly honest, to expect beautiful graphics off this is probably asking too much. And while photographs, as you find in Dan Verson's latest iteration of this game, photographs do it for a lot of people, but to be perfectly honest, in a game like this, I sort of want to immerse myself in the period, and I quite like this Jane's fighting ships, you know, combat fleets of the world aesthetic. I think it really works. And it's nice to have the named vessels and the various expansions that fill out the classes, because, you know, they still have a sense of, you know, they still have an identity, even though they are just an outline of a warship. The only other complaint that has been aired in some quarters, and it's made me scratch my head sometimes, is a few of the ratings on some of these ships are questionable. And the reason I'm waving Mikumo at you is, as you can see from her designation, she's a guided missile frigate. So why on earth does she only have a gunnery rating? See, that's a bit weird. And there are a few instances like that scattered across both fleets where warships are given ratings that don't really make much sense. you could put it down to the very broad brushstrokes that have gone into creating this game and crunching the data that led to the creation of this game. So yes, all right, a ship with perhaps a very weak missile armament has essentially been treated as though it has none. I don't know, maybe the Mikumo. I don't know much about the class, to be honest. Maybe their missile armament would be graded an A minus. I don't know. But clearly, Dan Versen, I think, did not want to go down the route of having that many categories because that would spoil the simplicity of the game. And in terms of what modern naval battles was originally designed to be and what it's meant to be able to do, I think that is the right decision. So there might be a little bit of nah from people who know, but I don't think they'll enjoy the game any less for it. You just get used to the fact that ships like poor little Mikumo have to get close enough to use their gun armament. And whereas by contrast, ships like the Slava can generally pick their battles at most range. I mean, really, something like the Slava wants to hang back, I think. Yes, and thanks to the fact that this game is available in its entirety online, it is my great pleasure to encourage people to just go and get it. If you do not mind a bit of arts and crafts, good old-fashioned quality cardstock paper and glue, you could have this game and all its expansions in a couple of weeks hard work, maybe a bit longer if you've got a job and a life to keep down, but it would really reward the effort, I think. I am actually slowly printing out and constructing some of the expansions that I don't have, particularly some of the additional air expansions. I really want those. I would just say that if you have any interest in a fun, quick-playing card game that's hugely adaptable, and I will say does not get stale easily, despite its simplicity, this game does not get old. Or if you have any interest in the Cold War particularly, a hankering to know what would happen if all those weapons we painstakingly stockpiled were ever used against one another in a non-nuclear context. Give this game a try. I think you'll enjoy it. Do visit the Relative Range website where all the links are in there, because there's very interesting write-ups on that site about Cold War naval battles as it is now, modern naval battles as it was then. And even if you don't go for it, I think you will find the game and its background very, very interesting. Personally, I hope you do get into it. And if you do like what you see, then maybe try out Dan Versen's latest iteration of the game. I'll put a link to his website at the end in the description to this video as well, just so you have that too. I've no idea how the latest iteration plays, but if it's anything like its older cousin, then I think you are in for a treat. And I'd be interested to know if anyone has got the newer version, how it compares to this absolute gem, one of the best things to come out of 1989. Okay, some of you might say that's not difficult, but come on, definitely one of the best things to come out of 1989. So there you have it. I will leave this particular game for now, but of course, if any of you want to see more on it, do leave me a comment on any of the videos in this series. I'll be happy to oblige. Might not be able to do so immediately, but I'll get round to it as soon as I can. It's been a pleasure showing you this game because although it's not in my top 10, as I said in the first video, it is a firm favourite that will always be on my gaming shelf, and I'll happily pull it out for anyone who wants to have a game. As always, thank you guys for following this series. To all my regulars, as ever, a massive hello. Thank you very much for joining me again. It's really good to see you all. If you happen to be visiting my channel for the first time, thank you very much for stopping by. I hope you find this interesting, and do check out the other videos on the channel if you want to. or indeed have a trawl round and see if there's anything else that interests you. I hope I'll see you again, and to all of you out there, thank you very much for tuning in. Until next time.